Today, on September 23rd, 2014, 8 students from Elgin Community College who are majoring in criminal justice have been given the opportunity to interview Mr. Donald Kramer, candidate for sheriff in Kane County, Illinois. We would like to thank you, Mr. Kramer, for interacting with the ECC students and answering our questions. Thank you.
There's been numerous accounts of excessive force, for example, Ferguson. And my question for you, Don Kramer, is do you believe body cameras will eliminate false allegations of excessive force and false arrest?
Well, first of all, you use the word eliminate, and I don't think under any circumstances, no matter how hard you try, it's very difficult to eliminate any type of circumstance completely. Now, body cameras do have an effect on the way officers treat people. I had a video camera in my car for 5 years while I was in charge of the traffic unit, traffic administration. And do I think it impacted the way I treated people? No, not myself specifically, because I was always taught to be polite and address people and then you have to react to them appropriately, period. And people that are getting stopped in traffic stops don't always act appropriate. Now, that's probably one of the most dangerous times for police officers. So if there is a camera, it has its advantages to be able to record what the other person's doing too, not what the police officer does. But I think that it would improve an officer's conduct knowing that they are on video and their voice is being recorded.
Concealed carry is now legal in Illinois. Do you believe that concealed carry law has improved the safety in our community?
Overall, I could say in our community here in Kane County, that would be difficult to measure. Is there the perception that people are perhaps more safe? I think that there is that perception. But here's part of the problem right now. The state originally thought that there was going to be about 10 times more people applying for concealed carry than there are. And even though there's plenty of classes offered, concealed carry hasn't really been implemented as much as people thought that they would jump on the bandwagon and everybody would have a concealed carry license. So, do people feel safer? Maybe, having the weapon with them. And if the training is appropriate, we hope to not have any instances where somebody is inappropriately shot. Of course, if you read the statistics around the nation, there are people who are inappropriately shooting at others. But as far as I know, in Kane County, there hasn't been an instance where concealed carry has interrupted a crime or they have shot anybody, a citizen has shot anybody.
What can you do if burglaries, auto thefts, and robberies start to go up because of concealed carry?
I don't think that the instances of those particular crimes you named, that the crime would actually go up. And I don't think it would go up because of concealed carry. Now, there are some downsides to concealed carry. Often people will carry a weapon in their car. And I don't know if you guys remember a few years ago, you might be too young, but the younger crowd having awesome stereos in their car with the big speakers and the thump. We had a huge increase of those stereo systems getting burglarized out of cars. So there may be an increase of car burglaries just because people might think that there's weapons concealed in a car, and that would be a bad thing. So again, an educational program, anytime you have a weapon, you need to have that under lock and key. So we don't want to be ever leaving a unsecured weapon in the vehicle.
Good evening, Mr. Kramer. My name is Nathan Webb, and I've lived in Kane County for several years now. During my childhood, I experienced domestic violence firsthand. Unfortunately, it never seemed as though the police ever helped my mother or family. This is why I am passionate about domestic violence and abuse, and why I want to know what you are going to do in Kane County to help these problems. Some Kane County police departments report that domestic violence and abuse crimes are the second most common responded to by police officers yearly. The Kane County Sheriff's Department reports that they answer 60 plus domestic violence and abuse calls per month. What exactly are you doing to help bring about awareness of domestic violence and abuse to both victims and the community? Also, How will you and officers provide help for the victims of domestic violence and abuse? And how will you combat the domestic violence and abuse problem?
Again, domestic violence is a community problem, and the education has to come from everybody in the community. It just can't come from the police officers. One of the things that the approach I have to domestic violence is letting the community know what the statistics are. There is a large problem with domestic violence, and we have to share that, I guess you could say, the blame or the responsibility with many agencies so that we can stem the tide of domestic violence. So my approach to it is to work with the state's attorney's office and domestic abuse providers, and making sure that we educate people, and also having a very strong domestic violence protocol so that when officers do go to people's houses and they are able to identify a domestic violence situation, that they take immediate action and steps. And personally, I think that one of the ways that we can stem domestic violence is to continuously monitor people that we know are having difficulties in the home. And there are indicators. For instance, young people who are absent from school a lot, and they may have injuries. Younger people who run away from home. It's usually indicative that there's probably a neglect or abuse problem at home. And so when the police are called to these types of calls, we need to be able to respond to it immediately and take appropriate action. And a good domestic violence protocol is in order for that. And then as a community, we have to take responsibility for domestic violence and work together as in a partnership to solve that problem.
Good evening, Don Kramer. My name is Joseph Fernandez. My question to you is, how can King County officials convince active gang members, especially juveniles, to be more influenced and involved with our community?
That's a very difficult question, because if I know who a gang member is, it's probably unlikely that I'm going to say, hey, come here, I want to talk to you, and get them to actively participate in a positive way in the community. So the biggest problem is being able to communicate with them and get some kind of productive conversation with them. So there are probably some situations where we can achieve that. Maybe when they're not around other members of the gang. Maybe try to get them involved in their church. Maybe try to get them involved with other activities. Unfortunately, a lot of people who get indoctrinated into gangs fall out of school. Their parents aren't on top of what's going on with their lives. So really what we do, we have to rewind and go back to when these kids are younger. And if you know about gang indoctrination, it starts as early as 4th and 5th grade, doing smaller things, but usually minor crimes like theft or burglary to vehicles. So we need to get kids, in my opinion, into after-school programs where we can give them something more positive to do and let them know that people do care about them and that they want to help them. As parents, I think we need to keep our kids in school, of course, and I'd also like to see more families involved in good activities in their community, like church activities or participating at the park district or making sure that your kids are well read by going to the library or taking out books. But really the way to get away from people getting indoctrinated into gangs is giving them something to replace that with. Once they do become involved with gangs, it's hard to get them out of the gangs. But as a community, there's things that we can do and offer help, assistance, guidance, get them away from drugs, alcohol, whatever's enticing them into the gangs. Try to help them solve their own problems.
Hi, Mr. Kramer. My name is Erica Arce, and I have resided in King County my entire life. As an Elginite and mother of an elementary-age student, I am very involved in my child's school district activities. One of my biggest concerns is protocol for in-school bullying. Research shows 20% of students grades 6 through 12 have reportedly experienced bullying or are feeling bullied. Sadly, students that are lesbian, gay, transgendered, overweight, and those perceived as weak are more likely to be bullied. On the other hand, children that bully are at risk of possible future criminal behavior and tragedy. The way I see it, bullying has negative effects on both the bullied and their aggressors. Can you please explain to us the approaches you plan to take towards this specific matter?
Well, right now I belong to an organization called the Geneva Coalition for Youth. And what we're doing is we have parents from each of the grade schools, and parents from middle school, and parents from the high school. And we're creating a network where we are trying to get programming all the way starting, like I said, 4th and 5th grade is those kind of the age group that starts to become very impressionable. So we're trying to create a network where we can bring in educational programs as early as the 4th and 5th grade and have a continuum of education going through middle school and high school. There's a bump in the amount or the level of bullying when kids are in middle school, especially probably 7th and 8th grade, where they find that that's very funny. And I think there's a couple of factors involved, but puberty especially one of those factors where somebody comes into their own and now they're bigger and stronger and they're of course mouthier, and then they become a very difficult person to deal with. So we need to identify what bullying is and have protocols in the school so that if somebody is bullied, that there's an intervention right away so we can take and address the problem, because that is a liability for schools, and that's where most bullying goes on. And then we have to also talk about cyberbullying and hopefully educate parents that there's a lot of stuff going on and they need to get involved with what their kids are doing on the telephones, text messaging and sexting and all the variety of other things. Education is very important. So therefore, working with the coalition, we're putting on programs for kids, but we're also putting on programs for adults. And that's especially true in high school, where we talk about bullying, and we create organizations that mentor people, I guess you could say with leadership skills, so that if you see bullying, that you actually take an active part in trying to prevent that. And so far that's worked really well.
Hi, my name is Anna. I'm a criminal justice student here at ECC. I have personally seen how drug use can affect families and how it destroys lives. I'm curious as to your plans as sheriff, how you're going to address the use of illegal drugs, specifically heroin use.
Again, I'm going to resort to telling you that it's a community problem. It's not just a law enforcement problem. Of course, as a law enforcement officer, I'm more likely to be the person that implements enforcement strategies. We do have to have enforcement strategies, but we have found as law enforcement officers, enforcement strategies alone will not solve the problem. Most young people and even older people resort to the use of drugs for a variety of reasons. Sometimes to kill emotional pain, sometimes because they have social, psychological problems, unable to deal with other people within their age group. And sometimes it's just to find out what being high or having a kick is all about. So again, we have to have a continuum of education starting as early as 4th and 5th grade, talking about drugs and introducing kids to leadership programs where they own their own body and they own their own mind, and they are able to say no to others and be strong. Because that's the biggest thing that young people can do to help themselves is not be weak and give in and become part of the in crowd. So we could teach those things at a younger age. Kids get older and they get involved with the wrong gang and they start doing drugs. It's a little bit harder to break that problem. And again, there's different types of intervention. Right now we have a lot of court services where we give people the opportunity to dry out or get off of drugs. Very difficult to do, especially for heroin. But if they are able to do that, then they don't end up with a criminal record. So all the way from 4th and 5th grade, where we have maybe little different strategies, after school programming, so we keep them involved in doing some positive things, and up through middle school, teaching them to be kind to others and take ownership of your own mind and be able to say no to others when you're given the opportunity to do drugs. And then through high school, trying to build on that emotional stability and getting involved with things so they have alternatives to doing, becoming part of the counterculture and basically outcast to the rest of us.
Hi, my name is Maria Luna. I'm currently a criminal justice student here at Elgin Community College. I want to become a police officer and move myself to become a detective. My question to you, Don Kramer, is how do you view women in the law enforcement And do you believe a female officer can do as much as a male police officer?
I've had quite a bit of experience being around female law enforcement officers. I believe that they're as good, if not better, than the people that they're surrounded with. Males and females do similar work. There's some pitfalls to being a female. Some people in the community don't take women as seriously. But again, if you have the proper conduct and you have confidence in the way you address people, then they will respect you. And that's the same no matter if you're a male or a female. Often I find female officers have better communication skills, are able to interview and interrogate people more successfully because males tend to trust females more, and females tend to even trust females more. So there's some advantages, and I would think that this idea that because a female is more diminutive, that they're less able to take care of themselves. But I would say that for the most part, many officers go through their whole career without becoming in a physical altercation, depending on if their conduct controls the situation. So good training, teaching a person to be confident and standing up to people when they're disrespectful. And then also, I've known quite a few women that have taken self-defense classes and hold up as just as good as males when it comes to mixing it up if they have to.
Mr. Kramer, my name is Robert Gorel. As both a resident of Kane County and a member of the military, suicide prevention is very important to me. Each year, about 1,200 soldiers take their own lives from the stress and lingering effects of combat. My question to you, Mr. Kramer, is if you are elected, how do you plan to implement your suicide prevention plan? And what changes, if any, are you going to make from the current plan?
I'm not so certain we currently have, at least in the police department, a plan. My strategies would include offering training and getting training to every single police officer. It's very important for the correctional center because many people who are arrested and brought into the correctional center are more vulnerable than in society in general. They feel as though it's the end of the world. Mom and dad are going to disown them, or their wife or husband will disown them, in that it's bleak and there's no hope for them. Them are some of the signs that you could tell somebody's suicidal, when they feel as though their life is worthless and there's no hope. So training, and I think training is the most important aspect of reading the signs of suicidal people. And during an arrest, people will say certain things, comments like, "I'm not worth anything. This is going to ruin my life," or "This is the end of my life." And then there's also other signs once they're in the correctional center. But so we need to have good training in the correctional center, but I also believe that every police officer should be trained, not just one time, but on a regular basis, perhaps even as much as once a year, on suicidal practices and suicidal tendencies, so that they're able to communicate better with the people who they arrest or who they come in contact with in society. Because truly, you don't know who is suicidal, and you need to talk to them and find out how they feel about themselves and ask some specific questions to be able to obtain that information. So really the strategy is to just communicate well with people when you do come in contact with them, and especially under the circumstances of an arrest and incarceration in our jail.
Last but not least, Mr. Kramer, what's most important to you in life?
The most important thing to me in my life is my family, and I think most of you would say the same thing. The sad part about people that get off track is they feel as though their family doesn't love them, and they don't have a strong enough support system. So realizing this, because I've been around so many people that have had so many difficulties in life, it makes me really, I guess, feel extremely lucky that I have the situation where I met a wonderful person, and I was be able to convince that person to marry me, and we have 3 wonderful children together. I work hard, my wife works hard. We make a pretty good income. We're able to raise our children, giving them some of the things that are a lot of fun for young people. My daughter's in dance tonight. She also has her own musical instruments. She participates in volleyball. So those are the kind of positive things. If you can keep your kids on track doing some positive things, then they don't have the time to get in trouble. So I think, you know, I'm very proud of my older kids. I have one that has graduated from college, and they went through high school with really good grades and went through a marching band program, and they stayed out of trouble completely through high school and college, which is phenomenal. No traffic tickets, no accidents. A parent couldn't be prouder. And I think, you know, you're young people. I don't think any of you are married yet, but it's something to look forward to in life. And what you need to do, of course, and I'm going to mentor you a little bit here, is always stay positive. Work hard at everything you do, no matter what it is. Work hard at a relationship, because they're not easy. And once you commit to a relationship, be kind to the other person. Treat them the way you want to be treated. And I think that's a lifelong lesson for all of us when we deal with anybody. Especially police officers. They have to realize people are having a tough day most of the time when they call you. They're burglarized, they're robbed, they've had a car accident. You might have to go to somebody's house to serve them an order of protection, a warrant, or you might have to take their property back because they weren't able to pay for it. So you have to treat people with respect and understand and have a little compassionate for their way. And I think if you're able to do that all the time to all people, then you're going to have a wonderful life. And I think I have a wonderful life because I try to treat people the way I like to be treated. And I got to say, I've had very few instances where somebody eventually didn't melt and turn into a real human being and do the same to me, treat me with the respect that I expect to be treated with.
Mr. Kramer, thank you for coming out to Elgin Community College, and we greatly appreciate your time. We want to wish you the best of luck in your election. Thank you.